Hey man, there comes a moment in every woman's life when she looks back and realizes, without anyone saying a word, that she's already met the man she can't replace. It doesn't happen right away. It happens slowly, quietly, years after the chaos fades, when the laughter she once faked in new relationships no longer feels convincing. It happens when she's sitting beside someone who looks perfect on paper, but feels emotionally hollow, and her mind, uninvited, drifts back to you. Not because of what you said, or even what you did, but because of what you were. You represented something rare, consistency. You were the calm in her storm, the mirror she avoided, the reality she wasn't ready for. And when she walked away, she didn't just lose a man, she lost a version of herself that felt safe in your presence. She'll date others, maybe even love again, but every time she does, she'll notice a difference she can't quite explain, a subtle emptiness that only you could fill. The man she can't replace isn't the most charming, the most handsome, or the most successful. He's the one who saw her beyond the surface, beyond the mask, beyond the chaos she used to weaponize. He's the one who didn't fall for her illusions, but still chose to love her through them. You were that man. You didn't chase her for validation. You stayed because you believed in potential. But when that belief turned into exhaustion, when you realized you were giving to a black hole that never gave back, you chose something she never expected. You walked away without turning bitter. That's what made you unforgettable. Not the romance, not the words, but the way you left. You left with your dignity intact, your silence sharp, your peace louder than any argument. You didn't beg, you didn't explain. You just disappeared into the kind of stillness that only strong men find after they've given everything they had. At first, she thought she'd moved on. She met new people, found new distractions, filled her calendar with noise, but over time, the novelty wore off, and she began to realize something painful. Every man after you felt like an imitation. They might have had flashier looks, better words, more attention to offer, but none of it landed the same way. None of them carried that stillness in their presence, that discipline in their demeanor, that quiet depth that made her feel safe even when she was being difficult. You see, a woman doesn't miss the man who gave her butterflies. She misses the man who gave her peace. And peace isn't something she can replace. It's something she must evolve to deserve again. That's what she learns too late, that your detachment wasn't indifference, it was awareness. You saw what she was doing. You understood why she was doing it. And instead of punishing her, you simply stopped participating. That calm exit, that's what keeps her awake at night. She'll try to convince herself it wasn't real. She'll tell her friends, he wasn't right for me, or I just outgrew him. But deep down, when the noise fades and the night stretches long, she knows. She knows that no one else understood her contradictions like you did. No one else stayed grounded while she spiraled. No one else called her out without shaming her, challenged her without breaking her, or held her accountable without making her feel small. You were the balance between her chaos and her craving for control. And the truth she avoids is that she didn't walk away because you weren't enough. She walked away because you made her see too much. You made her confront parts of herself. She wasn't ready to change, and that's why no matter how far she runs, every time she finds herself disappointed in someone new, your name comes back, not as regret, but as a reminder of the man she wasn't ready for. What makes you irreplaceable isn't that you were perfect, it's that you were real in a world built on performance. You didn't play roles to keep her interested. You didn't sell her dreams to keep her attached. You didn't worship her flaws under the illusion of unconditional love. You loved her through reality. You saw her power and her fragility and treated both with the same quiet respect. You didn't lose her because you failed. You lost her because she wasn't built to handle the depth you carried. That's the paradox most women never admit. They crave intensity until they realize it demands growth. And you represented that growth. You didn't bend to her moods. You stayed true to your standard. You didn't argue to prove your value. You let your absence do the talking. And now, that absence, years later, has become the standard she subconsciously holds every man against. It's not revenge, it's inevitability. Because once a woman experiences authenticity, everything fake starts to feel exhausting. At first, she resists the pull. She'll tell herself that missing you is just nostalgia, that it's normal to think about someone from her past. But over time, she notices it's different with you. You don't just cross her mind occasionally, you linger. You appear in the quietest parts of her day, in moments that feel unrelated, in fragments of conversations with men who don't even come close. When another man holds her hand, she feels the lack of weight behind it. When someone texts her first thing in the morning, she feels the absence of meaning in his words. Because what she's realizing, slowly and painfully, is that attention isn't connection, and connection can't be faked. You didn't flood her with words, but every time you spoke, it carried substance. You didn't drown her in flattery, but when you looked at her, it felt like you saw her. That's what's haunting her now. She's surrounded by people who speak louder, move faster, and try harder, yet none of them make her feel anything real. The men she meets now are reflections of what she thought she wanted when she left you. Validation, excitement, novelty. But those things don't last, and she knows it now. The thrill fades, the attention dies, and suddenly she's back where she started, restless and unfulfilled. That's when she starts replaying old memories with you, not for comfort, but for comparison. She remembers your composure, your focus, the way you didn't bend just to please her. You had a stillness that made her feel safe, and a strength that made her feel challenged. That combination is rare, almost impossible to find, and it's why she can't move on completely. Because every man she meets after you falls into one of two categories: the ones who try too hard, and the ones who don't try at all. But you existed perfectly in between. You cared, but you didn't chase. You listened, but you didn't submit. You gave her attention without giving her control. And now, she realizes that balance was love in its highest form. When a woman loses a man like that, she doesn't just lose the relationship, she loses emotional gravity. You anchored her, even when she didn't realize it. You gave her stability through your presence, even when she mistook it for predictability. She didn't know it back then, but you were the reason she could feel chaotic and still come back to calm. Now that calm is gone, and she's surrounded by people who don't challenge her to be better, they just feed her distractions. And while she might seem happy, something deep within her is unsettled. It's the kind of discomfort that can't be fixed with new experiences or new faces, because it's not about missing you, it's about missing who she was when she was with you. Around you, she was softer, more grounded, more real. You didn't let her hide behind her walls, you made her confront them. That kind of emotional reflection doesn't fade easily. It stays even when love doesn't. There's a moment that always comes, a quiet one, usually late at night, when she catches herself scrolling through her phone, not looking for anyone new, but revisiting the old. Maybe it's your messages, maybe it's a photo, maybe it's just your name sitting there, untouched in her contact list. She doesn't text you, but she hovers there, frozen between pride and longing. Because reaching out would mean admitting that she underestimated you, that she thought you were replaceable, that she believed she could do better, and that she was wrong. That's what keeps her silent, not indifference, but shame. Because deep down, she knows what she traded: substance for excitement, steadiness for stimulation, peace for noise. And even if she never tells anyone, she can't hide it from herself. Every new man feels temporary. Every new connection feels shallow, because once you've been loved by a man who doesn't need you to feel complete, every other love feels like dependence. And while she struggles to forget, you've evolved into someone even stronger. Your absence didn't just teach her a lesson, it rebuilt you. You're not the same man she left. You're sharper now, quieter but heavier in presence. You move with certainty, not haste. You've learned that peace isn't found in control, it's found in letting go. And that's what she'll never understand. By walking away, she freed you from the illusion that love means losing yourself. Now, you don't chase validation, you attract it. You don't need affection, you inspire it. You don't fall into relationships, you choose them carefully, like a man who knows the price of giving his heart to the wrong person. And that evolution, that quiet confidence you carry now, that's what makes you irreplaceable. Because it's not that she can't find another man, it's that she can't find another you. There comes a strange phase after the breakup, the kind few people talk about, the phase where she starts trying to rebuild herself, but every step forward feels like walking through fog. She tries new hobbies, she changes her hair, she spends time with friends who tell her she's better off. Outwardly, she looks fine, glowing even, But deep down, there's a quiet restlessness that keeps whispering your name, because she's starting to realize that no matter how much she changes on the surface, it's not you she's trying to replace, it's the feeling she had when she was with you. That sense of emotional safety, of being seen without performing, of being understood without speaking. You were her mirror, and when she lost you, she lost that reflection. Every new man she meets feels like a projection, someone she has to impress, manage, or manipulate. But with you, she could just exist. That difference haunts her in ways words can't express. At some point, she'll start replaying the arguments, not the ones where she was angry, but the ones where she was wrong. She'll remember your patience, your silence, the way you let her talk herself into circles while you sat there, calm, unshaken. Back then, she mistook that calm for emotional distance. Now, she sees it for what it truly was, strength. You weren't avoiding confrontation, you were mastering it. You didn't need to prove your point, because you were the point. And that's what cuts the deepest now. Realizing that she fought to win moments while you were fighting to protect the connection. She wanted control, you wanted peace. She chased validation, you sought understanding, and when she finally got what she thought she wanted, your distance, she learned that peace without depth feels like emptiness. There's a cruel irony in how emotional memory works. You can delete photos, block contacts, move cities, but your nervous system doesn't forget how someone made you feel. Her body still remembers your presence, the comfort in your tone, the steadiness in your eyes, the groundedness in your energy. And every time she meets a man who lacks that, which is almost everyone, her subconscious reminds her what she lost. She'll call it chemistry when she feels it again, but it's not chemistry, it's familiarity. It's the echo of a connection that went deeper than attraction. You represented emotional security in a world built on superficial thrills, and once she's tasted that, everything else feels like eating fast food after a home-cooked meal, filling but never nourishing. That's why she can't settle, because the truth is, she doesn't miss you because she's lonely, she misses you because she's unfulfilled. Meanwhile, your silence continues to echo, louder than any words you could ever say. She expected anger, she expected pleading, maybe even a hint of bitterness. But when she got nothing, no reaction, no resentment, no chase, that's when the panic set in. Because silence to a woman isn't emptiness, it's power. It forces her to confront her own thoughts, her own guilt, her own unfinished emotions. And the more she tries to justify why she left, the more her own mind betrays her with flashbacks of everything you did right. That's the silent war. She'll never win. The war between pride and regret. You've already won by walking away. But what really breaks her is that you didn't do it to hurt her. You did it because you finally understood your worth. And that level of detachment, that calm knowing that you don't need to prove your value, it's the rarest form of revenge. Eventually, she'll test the waters. A random text, a like on an old post, maybe even a subtle message disguised as checking in. It won't be about reconciling, it'll be about reassurance. She wants to know if you still care, if she still has emotional influence over you. Because in her world, attention equals value. But when you don't bite, when your responses are polite, distant, or absent altogether, it shakes her. That's when she realizes the full extent of what she's lost. Not a boyfriend, not a relationship, but a man who once made her feel something she can't recreate: stability. She'll scroll through her phone at night, seeing the conversation she's having now, shallow, predictable, empty, and she'll finally get it. You were the one person she could have built something real with, and she let it slip through her fingers chasing illusions of excitement. The cruel truth is, she thought walking away would make her feel powerful. Instead, it showed her that power means nothing without peace. As the months pass, something inside her starts to shift quietly. The distractions she once used, the parties, the attention, the endless scrolling through dating apps, they begin to lose their thrill. Every man she entertains now feels eerily predictable. They say the same things, offer the same hollow promises, and most importantly, none of them challenge her emotionally. Because what she misses about you isn't just love, it's the emotional mirror you held up to her face. You saw through her layers, the games, the performances she used to test you, and for the first time, someone didn't fall for it. That terrified her back then. Now it's the very thing she craves. You represented a type of love that didn't demand her to perform. It demanded her to be real. And deep down, she knows that's why she can't forget you. Because authenticity is the rarest drug, and once someone gives it to you, you can't get high on anything else again. There's a strange duality that lives inside her now, a mix of pride and quiet suffering. On the surface, she tells her friends she's fine, that she's happier now, that losing you was for the best. But late at night, when the phone is silent and the mask drops, that's when the truth leaks out. The memories she suppressed start creeping back. The softness of your tone when you said her name, the calm look in your eyes when she was overreacting, the safety she felt just by being next to you. That's when her defenses crumble, because what she told herself was boring or predictable about you was really emotional stability. And emotional stability, once lost, is like oxygen. You don't notice how much you needed it until it's gone. The worst part, she now realizes that every new man she dates feels like a watered-down version of what you gave her effortlessly. What eats her alive isn't that she lost you, it's that she pushed you away, because deep down she knows she had the choice to stay. You didn't beg, you didn't chase, you simply gave her the space she said she wanted. And that's what destroyed her. Because every woman secretly believes the man who loves her will fight for her, even if she resists him. But when you didn't, when you calmly accepted her decision, you forced her to face a truth she never expected. That love doesn't mean control, it means choice. You didn't lose her, you let her go. And that act of calm acceptance flipped the entire dynamic. You became the one with emotional power, because you weren't operating from fear. You were operating from self-respect, and that's what made you unforgettable. She's not haunted by your presence, she's haunted by your absence. Now, every time she meets a man who checks all the boxes, something feels off. It's not that they're bad men, they just lack that thing you had, that grounded energy, that unspoken confidence, that emotional presence that made her feel safe enough to be feminine. The truth she won't admit is that your masculinity brought out a softness in her she didn't know existed. And without you, she's been forced back into her armor. The independent, strong, I don't need anyone version of herself that feels safe but exhausted. Because what she misses isn't just you, it's who she became when she was with you. The version of herself that laughed more, trusted more, and didn't need to control everything. You awakened a part of her that no man since has been able to touch. And now every interaction feels mechanical compared to the emotional depth she once drowned in with you. She'll never admit it, but every so often, she checks to see what you're up to. Not because she wants to come back, but because she wants to measure your peace against her chaos. When she sees you thriving, living your life, looking calm and focused, it stings in ways she can't describe. Because your growth is proof that you never needed her validation to begin with, and that realization flips everything she thought she knew about you. She thought you'd crumble without her, that your silence was punishment, that your distance was weakness. But the more time passes, the more she sees. You didn't stay quiet out of pain. You stayed quiet because you were healing. Because while she was out chasing distractions, you were out rediscovering yourself. And that, more than anything, is what breaks her. She left to find better, only to realize that better doesn't exist when you've already had peace. As her new reality settles in, she starts to experience something she's never felt before: emotional dissonance. She tells herself she's moved on, but her body disagrees. Her heart speeds up when she hears your name. Her mind replays moments she thought she'd forgotten. Her friends notice her zoning out mid-conversation. That's because the part of her that convinced herself she was over it is losing its grip. Deep down, she realizes she's not mourning you anymore. She's mourning the version of herself that existed with you. That woman who felt seen, understood, desired, safe. Now she's surrounded by men who give her attention, but no emotional depth, who chase her endlessly, but never challenge her to grow. And in that quiet realization, she starts to understand what she really lost. It wasn't a man, it was a connection rooted in truth, something rare, something irreplaceable. There comes a night, usually unexpected, when it all hits her at once. She'll be scrolling through her phone, maybe looking at old pictures, and suddenly, she stops on one with you. The floodgates open. It's not a cry of nostalgia, it's a cry of recognition, because she finally understands what she threw away. She sees the subtle strength in your eyes that she used to call distant. She remembers how your calmness once annoyed her because she mistook it for indifference, but now she understands it was emotional control. And now every man she meets feels like an overcorrection of what she thought she wanted. They're loud, where you were calm, insecure, where you were centered, reactive, where you were grounded. In that moment, she realizes she didn't need more excitement. She needed emotional maturity, but she learned that lesson too late, and that's a truth that keeps her up at night. You see, women rarely regret leaving immediately. They justify it, rationalize it, bury it under temporary excitement. But months later, when the dopamine fades and reality returns, that's when the emotional bill arrives. The high of freedom wears off, and all that's left is silence, the kind that reminds her she's replaceable in a world of superficial connection. You, on the other hand, evolve in silence. You become sharper, more composed, more in tune with yourself. And that contrast between your calm rise and her quiet descent starts eating at her, because she realizes you were never competing with other men. You were competing with her perception of herself, and now that perception is cracking. Every time she sees a glimpse of your peace, she feels the sting of knowing she was part of the chaos you had to escape to become the man you are now. What she doesn't understand is that your silence was never revenge, it was reflection. You weren't ignoring her to make her chase, you were rediscovering your worth. That's what makes your energy so powerful now. You're not operating from bitterness, you're operating from clarity. And that's something a woman can feel. She can sense when a man's peace no longer depends on her, and it terrifies her. Because when you no longer need her validation, she loses her power over you. The emotional strings she once pulled so easily no longer move you. Your silence has become her mirror, showing her everything she refused to confront within herself. That's why she lingers, why she checks your stories, why she tries to appear unaffected. Because deep down, she knows you've leveled up beyond her emotional reach. And here's the part no one talks about. Once she realizes what she's lost, she doesn't come back because of love. She comes back because of energy. She misses the way your calmness grounded her storm. She misses the way your presence made her feel alive without chaos. She wants to feel that sense of balance again, but not necessarily because she values you, rather because she needs what you gave her emotionally. But by then, you're different. You've seen behind the illusion. You no longer mistake attention for affection, chaos for passion, or emotional inconsistency for love. You've grown beyond needing her validation, and that's the exact moment she truly loses you. Not when she walked away, but when you stopped waiting for her to turn around. Because that's when the power shifted permanently, and your peace became louder than her absence. What begins to haunt her now isn't the idea of losing you. It's the realization that she'll never find another man who will love her the way you did. You didn't love her for how she looked, for the temporary thrill, or for the image she projected to the world. You loved her for her essence, for the tiny details about her that no one else even noticed. You loved her when she wasn't trying. You loved her when she was tired, quiet, messy, and real. And that kind of love, pure, grounded, and patient, doesn't come twice. It's the kind of love women dream of, but often push away because they mistake it for something too calm, too predictable, too safe. Now she finally sees that what she called boring was actually peace. And peace, once lost, becomes the most addictive pain there is. She may try to recreate it with someone new, but it never works, because love without depth becomes performance. She'll laugh louder, dress better, and try to convince herself she's happier. But the problem is, she's not being loved, she's being entertained. The new man might compliment her constantly, message her all day, or show jealousy to prove he cares. Yet, deep down, she knows. All of it feels shallow compared to the quiet, unspoken understanding she had with you. You didn't need to announce your affection. She could feel it in the silence between words, in the stillness of your presence. That's what she's trying to replace now. Not your face, not your name, but your energy. And when a woman realizes she's chasing energy, she herself destroyed, the guilt hits harder than heartbreak ever could. What really destroys her, though, is the moment she realizes she can no longer reach you. Not physically, but emotionally. You've crossed that invisible line where nothing she says or does can shake your peace anymore. You're no longer watching her life, no longer reacting, no longer checking if she misses you. That emotional distance becomes the sharpest blade, because before, she could always rely on your attention. It was her comfort zone, her assurance that you still cared, even if she didn't. But once that attention vanishes, she's left in emotional freefall. Every story she posts, every subtle attempt to show off her happiness, it's a test to see if you'll respond. And when you don't, the silence screams louder than any argument ever could. That's when she truly understands what it means to lose emotional control. Meanwhile, you start to realize something she never did, that her rejection was your redirection. What once broke you has now built you. You've evolved into the kind of man who doesn't seek validation, but commands it effortlessly. Your silence became your armor. Your detachment became your power. You've learned that peace is the most seductive energy a man can possess. And ironically, that's exactly what makes her want you now. Because women are drawn not to the man who gives them everything, but to the man who can walk away from everything without losing himself. The same traits she once dismissed as cold are now the traits that make every woman you meet instinctively curious and cautious at the same time. You're no longer trying to impress anyone, you're too busy building your life. And this is where the full circle happens. The moment she realizes that while she was busy seeking excitement, she became the one left behind. You've risen, quietly and consistently. You no longer need her to validate your worth, because you've seen what happens when a man chooses himself. That kind of energy can't be faked, it radiates. And when she finally sees that you've not only moved on but evolved, something inside her breaks permanently. Because she thought walking away gave her power, but now she sees that letting her go gave you freedom. The tables have turned without a single word being spoken, and that's what hurts her most. Not your absence, not your silence, but the fact that your peace is something she'll never be part of again. The chapter closed, not with anger, but with evolution, and that's the kind of ending no woman ever truly recovers from. What begins to unsettle her now isn't just your silence, it's your evolution. She can feel that you've detached from her world entirely, that your focus has shifted from what went wrong to what's next. And that shift is terrifying to a woman who once had control over your emotions. See, the power she once held came from your need for closure, your desire to understand, your compulsion to fix things. But once that need evaporates, she's left standing in a mirror with her own reflection, and that's when the guilt hits. Because deep down, she knows she had a man who was ready to give everything, and she treated it like it was disposable. Now, she's haunted by the contrast, your calm versus her chaos, your growth versus her stagnation. You're no longer just the man she left, you've become a living reminder of what she'll never get back. As you rebuild, she starts to feel the distance growing, not in miles, but in frequency. The messages stop, the glances fade, and eventually she realizes she's been erased from your daily thoughts. And that realization stings deeper than any insult could. Because women don't miss men, they forget. They miss the feeling of being irreplaceable. But once you've shown her that she's not the axis of your world, her ego shatters. She'll replay every conversation, every mistake, every moment she took for granted. She'll wonder how the same man who once cared so deeply could now look through her like she's invisible. But what she doesn't realize is that the love you gave wasn't weakness, it was your strength. And now that you've redirected that strength toward yourself, she's left to face a truth. Most women never expect a man's silence after love is far louder than his affection ever was. It's at this point that her new life begins to lose its color. The thrill of freedom fades. The validation she once received feels empty. The attention of new men starts to blend together, predictable, repetitive, meaningless. Because after experiencing a man who saw through her, understood her, and loved her without needing to control her, every new interaction feels shallow. She smiles, she laughs, but it's forced. It's her way of convincing herself she's okay. Yet behind those smiles, she's haunted by flashes of what once was. The way you looked at her like she was the only one in the room, the way your energy made her feel safe, grounded, and understood. But she can't go back now, not because you wouldn't take her, but because you no longer exist in the form she left. You've outgrown the version of yourself that needed her, and that's a kind of loss no woman can fix. Your silence becomes magnetic, not because it's a tactic, but because it's genuine. You're not playing games, you're just done. And that authenticity, your indifference born from acceptance, pulls her in like gravity. She'll test the waters subtly. A like on your story, a random message, a casual comment, but you'll see through it immediately. You'll recognize the pattern, the emotional fishing disguised as friendliness, and you won't bite, because now, you understand something most men never do. The moment you stop trying to win her back is the moment she starts to lose herself. You flip the dynamic without saying a word, and that's the beauty of it. Your silence isn't revenge, it's revelation. It shows her that the power she thought she had was never hers. It was borrowed from your attention. Now she's the one replaying the moments in her head, trying to decode the shift. She can't comprehend how you could go from loving her to not caring at all. But that's because she never understood what love truly was for you. Love for a man like you was commitment, focus, effort, a conscious decision. And once that decision is revoked, it's final. You're not ignoring her out of spite, you're protecting your peace. You've learned that some connections aren't meant to be resurrected. They're meant to be lessons. You're no longer seeking emotional validation from women who confuse attention with affection. You've reached a level of emotional clarity where peace has become more attractive than passion, where solitude feels more fulfilling than shallow connection. And that's what truly breaks her, knowing she can no longer disturb your balance, that her chaos no longer has a place in your calm. Time has now become her biggest enemy. The same days that once healed you are now torturing her. Every week that passes without your presence chips away at the illusion she built about herself, the illusion that she was irreplaceable, that you'd always be there waiting. But silence has a way of exposing truth. She's starting to see the emotional gap that your absence created, a void that no one else can fill. The men she meets might provide temporary distraction, but none of them challenge her spirit the way you did. None of them have that quiet depth, that commanding stillness. You've become her ghost, one that doesn't haunt by appearing, but by staying gone. And that absence echoes in her mind more loudly than any message or call ever could, because deep down, she knows she'll never get the same version of you again. Your growth has become a silent message that she can't ignore. She watches from afar, maybe through mutual friends, maybe online, maybe through the subtle breadcrumbs of your success, and what she sees terrifies her. You're thriving. You're sharper, calmer, more grounded. You've channeled your pain into purpose, your heartbreak into hunger. You no longer seek validation, you radiate it. And that glow, that unbothered energy, that masculine calm, she can feel it, even if she'd never admit it. What she once dismissed as too serious or too cold now looks like confidence. What she once said was emotionally unavailable now looks like peace. That shift in perspective hurts her more than any breakup ever could, because it shows her that the problem was never you. It was her inability to value what was real. Women often underestimate the emotional depth of a man until it's gone. They confuse your patience for weakness, your kindness for neediness, your loyalty for lack of options, and when they walk away, they expect you to crumble. But when you don't, when you rise instead, it dismantles everything they believe about control. She thought she could test you, and you'd chase harder. She thought silence would make you beg. She thought leaving would make you desperate, but all it did was set you free. And that's when she starts to understand the cruel truth. The more peace a man finds in losing her, the more she realizes how deeply she's lost him. It's a form of punishment she inflicted on herself without even knowing it. A slow creeping awareness that she destroyed something irreplaceable because she didn't know what true masculinity looked like until it walked away. The irony of it all is that the version of you she wanted, the one who doesn't chase, who's focused on himself, who radiates confidence and control, is the man she created by leaving. Your pain became your power. Her rejection became your awakening. Every sleepless night, every unanswered question, every ounce of confusion, it all sculpted you into someone unshakable. You no longer need her validation, and that's precisely why she craves yours. It's a paradox. Women never admit out loud they want the man who doesn't need them. The same silence that once made you suffer is now what draws her in. But you've learned too much to fall for it again. You've seen how easily affection can turn to indifference, how quickly love can dissolve when convenience fades. You now understand that loyalty means nothing to someone who confuses excitement with love. At this stage, you've reached something beyond detachment. it's transcendence. You no longer hold resentment, because resentment still gives her space in your mind. You've simply outgrown her emotionally. You've become immune to manipulation, immune to nostalgia, immune to fantasy. You see things as they are, not as you wish they were. That's the ultimate freedom. The power to let go without bitterness, to move on without needing closure. And when she finally realizes that she's not even in your thoughts anymore, that you don't check her profile, that you don't wonder what she's doing, it breaks her spirit, because now she understands the same silence that once made her feel powerful is the silence that now defines her irrelevance. She'll try to fill the void, to recreate your presence in others, but every new man will remind her of what she destroyed when she underestimated a man who truly cared. There comes a point when she realizes she didn't just lose you, she lost a version of herself that existed around you. You see, a woman becomes who she truly is when she feels the stability of masculine energy beside her. When she's with a man who's calm, collected, and emotionally steady, she mirrors that energy. You gave her that sense of safety, even when she didn't deserve it. You were her emotional anchor, her compass, her quiet protector. But once you left, she stepped back into a world of chaos. The attention she gets now feels hollow, the affection she receives is transactional, and the excitement she once chased feels like exhaustion. Deep down, she knows she's not the same woman anymore. The glow she had when she was with you, it wasn't hers, it was borrowed from your peace. And now that peace is gone, so is the version of her that she secretly misses. Your silence keeps teaching her lessons long after you've stopped caring, because the truth is, silence is not just a lack of communication, it's a mirror. In the beginning, she used your quiet to assume power. She thought you were sulking, waiting, hurting, but as the weeks turned into months, the silence started revealing something else: strength. It became proof that you've accepted the ending, that you're not waiting for her to apologize or come back, that your life is moving forward, with or without her. And this realization shakes her core, because every woman knows one thing: when a man truly stops caring, there's no way back. You can fake happiness, you can fake confidence, but you can't fake indifference. And indifference is the language she never wanted you to learn. Her ego will make her try to test your boundaries again. Maybe a random message after weeks of silence, maybe a story meant to trigger nostalgia, or a sudden appearance in places she knows you frequent. But these aren't signs of love, they're signs of control. She's not trying to rebuild, she's trying to confirm that she still has access to your emotions, and that's where most men fail. They mistake curiosity for affection. But not you, not anymore. You've grown beyond the emotional bait she used to throw. You no longer react to crumbs when you've learned to bake your own peace. That's what makes you untouchable, not arrogance, but emotional self-sufficiency. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't explain. Because once a man understands his worth, he doesn't negotiate with memories. Meanwhile, she begins to compare every man she meets to you, and none of them measure up. They might be funnier, richer, more outgoing, but none carry the same energy. None make her feel seen without her trying. None listen with intent. None lead with quiet strength. She starts realizing that the kind of love you gave wasn't dramatic but rare, and what's rare is irreplaceable. That's why she'll never truly move on, because even if she forgets your name in conversation, she won't forget how she felt when you looked at her like she mattered. That kind of connection leaves an imprint, and it follows her like a shadow. It shows up in the quiet moments of her new relationships, reminding her that comfort doesn't equal chemistry and attention doesn't equal devotion. You've set a standard she'll never admit out loud, but one she'll measure every man against for the rest of her life. And as for you, you've become something most men never do: emotionally sovereign. You're not heartless. You've simply mastered the art of detachment. You've learned that love without respect is poison, and that peace is worth more than passion that burns too fast. The man you've become doesn't need revenge, validation, or closure. Your existence itself is the proof of evolution. You've realized that the power isn't in winning her back, it's in never wanting her again, because the true victory isn't making her regret losing you. It's reaching a place where her regret no longer matters. You walk through life now with a quiet dominance, the kind that doesn't shout, doesn't boast, doesn't prove, because the loudest man in the room is often the weakest, and you've learned that real strength whispers. By now, she's entering the stage of silent obsession, a phase she'll never speak about, not to her friends, not even to herself. It begins subtly, as curiosity. She starts checking your social media late at night, scrolling through your old photos, wondering how you've changed. But what begins as curiosity quickly transforms into compulsion. Every picture you post, every story you share, it reminds her that your world kept spinning without her. You've become a man she can't predict anymore, and that unpredictability draws her in like a magnet, because women crave mystery, especially when it comes from a man who used to be emotionally available. She remembers the times you used to text her first, worry about her moods, overthink her silences, and now you're the one who seems untouchable. You're the story she keeps trying to rewrite in her head, but every version ends with the same conclusion. She lost the only man who ever truly understood her. The hardest pill for her to swallow is realizing that you're happier now, not pretending, but genuinely at peace. You don't carry resentment. You don't chase closure. You don't even care to explain your side of the story. And that calmness, it's devastating to her ego, because she thought your happiness depended on her presence. She believed she was the source of your fulfillment. That now that you're glowing without her, improving physically, mentally, emotionally, she realizes she was just a chapter in your story, not the whole book. That stings deeper than heartbreak, because when a man heals without bitterness, he becomes something terrifyingly attractive, a man who's no longer driven by pain. You've evolved from needing her to inspire you, to becoming the man who inspires others. That transformation doesn't just heal you, it haunts her. You see, her biggest fear was never losing you, it was being forgotten by you. Women crave emotional immortality. They want to live rent-free in a man's heart forever. But when she sees that you've truly moved on, not through rebound relationships, but through inner peace, she realizes she's been erased. Not out of hate, but out of growth. And that's a kind of erasure no woman recovers from. Because it means she didn't leave an emotional scar, she left a lesson. It means you've learned what to give and who not to give it to. You've stopped over-explaining your worth, stopped trying to prove your love, stopped justifying your loyalty. You've become selective, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. And that wisdom radiates in your silence, because you now know that the right woman will never need convincing. She'll recognize your value the moment she feels your presence. Meanwhile, her world begins to lose meaning. The excitement of her freedom fades, and the thrill of attention turns into noise. Every conversation she has feels forced. Every compliment feels empty. She'll try to fill the void with distractions, new people, new places, new habits, but nothing soothes that restless ache. Because deep down, she's not missing love, she's missing purpose. You gave her that sense of meaning, the feeling of being grounded, seen, safe. But when she threw it away, she didn't realize she was throwing away her own reflection in your calm. That's the paradox women face when they lose a man like you. They don't just lose the relationship, they lose the version of themselves that was better because of it. And once that's gone, the world feels colder, emptier, and far less magical. Now you've reached a place she'll never be able to follow, emotional freedom. You no longer define yourself through her actions or her absence. You're not trying to be the man she regrets losing. You're simply being the man you were always meant to become. Your energy speaks louder than your words ever could. You've turned pain into purpose, heartbreak into hunger, and silence into strength. You've mastered the most powerful skill a man can ever possess, the art of walking away with dignity and never looking back. Because real power isn't about control, it's about peace. And when a man finds peace, the world bends differently around him. She'll see you someday, maybe years later, and feel that familiar ache in her chest. Not because she misses you, but because she'll finally understand what she threw away. And that's when she'll realize she didn't lose you, she lost herself in trying to find something better than peace.